All right, happy Wednesday. Greetings from Los Angeles. My final day in LA and heading home for a couple of days before Summer League. Hopefully, everyone is doing great. Happy 4th of July. I figured we'll do a little whip around like we did the other night. We'll hit on hopefully, all 30 teams here and kind of just give you the lay of the land and where things are. Some have more to talk about, and certainly some have less. Player contracts, teams can start signing players on July 6th. So a lot of the stuff we're using right now are projections. Um, the actual contracts will come in. We'll take a look at them. We'll report on them. And trades can become official July 6th at noon. And let's go. Let's start with Atlanta. You are going to see Nickeil Alexander-Walker, that contract for 62. That is going to be a sign and trade that will go into the $25.3 million trade exception from, I think, John Collins. Alexander Walker will go into the TE. Luke Kennard is used with most of the non-tax mid-level exception. They are now hard capped, but still enough flexibility below. I think they're about $15 million below the first apron hard cap. Before we go any further, sportsbusinessclassroom.com, you can go in there and you can read all about all these fun rules that we talk about and how all these exceptions work. But we'll continue putting out slides here. Atlanta for me is one of the big winners of the offseason. I gave them a B plus so far. I'm a hard grader. Not doing an A. Houston gets an A, but Atlanta has been really good as far as the creativity, as far as finding ways to add players and still having that flexibility. We'll keep an eye on Trae Young, who is extension eligible. The most is 4 for 222. Boston is interesting because they signed Josh Minot. They signed the rookie Hugo Gonzalez. You can sign first round picks. You can sign two-way guys. You can sign players to the vet minimum right now. There's no moratorium on those players. They also signed Luca Garza. They went over the apron a little bit. Don't worry, you can still get back under. They're about $400,000 below the above, the second apron here, but they'll figure a way how to get back under here. It doesn't really impact you until the season ends, or basically when we get to the trade deadline. As far as the apron rules and stuff, they're so right at it that what they have available as far as from a trade perspective, the aggregate rules and the taking back more money technically would still apply to them. Brooklyn, we saw them use most of their cap space on Michael Porter Jr., and they get a 2032 first round pick from Denver. They've got $17 million in cap space available. That includes Cam Thomas's cap hold. Roughly, if Thomas wasn't on the roster, $30 million in room. They're basically right at that floor. Do we have breaking news? No, we don't have breaking news. Cam Thomas and the rest, we'll do each individual. Cam Thomas, restricted free agent. The market for him, probably the non-tax mid-level exception, which is at $14 million. He's got to make a decision if is that what he wants to do, or he can sign the qualifying offer. Certainly, Brooklyn roster is funky, I would say. Terrence Mann and Michael Porter Jr., your adults in the room, and then it's all the young kids here. We'll keep an eye on what Brooklyn does with the rest of their cap space here. Charlotte went out and got Spencer Dinwiddie. They got a lot of guards. Spencer Dinwiddie and Pat Connaughton they wound up getting. We got to add Pat to this list here. In a trade for Vasily Michik, a couple second round picks as part of that deal here. Colin Sexton, of course. There's going to be some roster maneuverability. Remember, in the offseason, you can carry 21 players. It's not 15 on standard contracts here, but they're in good shape. This is a retooling of the roster, but they've got a lot of shooting. My phone is buzzing here. Yeah, so that is or Charlotte here as far as where they are. They've got to figure out, as I said, some of their roster positioning. But for Chicago, we've talked about it. They signed Trey Jones, Josh Giddey. I'm going to say, I said this on Sports Center. In the last 10 years, we've had 5 players sign qualifying offers. And what the qualifying offer does is it's a 1-year contract, and then you become an unrestricted free agent next offseason. You have, because it's a 1-year contract, you have full authority on any trade. So you have veto power on trades. The problem is that if you approve a trade and you are traded to that team, you will lose your bird rights, the ability to exceed the salary cap. You're basically treated like a normal free agent here. So there is a leverage play with that. It gives that player certainly the rights to basically play out the season here and then enter free agency next offseason. He would still have bird rights here. So let's keep an eye on the future of Josh Giddey in Chicago. I made a joke during our production meeting. I said they're about the Gulf of Mexico apart. Figure that out. I know I got humor. Lonzo, right? We talked about Lonzo Ball. Larry Nance Jr., I like. That's a good pickup as far as from the bench perspective. He's on the minimum. They are roughly $20 million over the second apron. Dallas is going to be interesting because there's going to have to be a move here. We talked about D'Angelo Russell. 5.7 triggers the second apron. They're at 206.2. That does not include Dante Exum, who they agreed to on Wednesday. You can't exceed the apron if it's already triggered. Dallas fans know that from this past year. But you added D'Angelo Russell, Dante Exum. Who else did you? Certainly Kyrie, you re-signed. Their roster is pretty full. They've got 16 players. They're going to have to trim a contract before all these signings happen here. Keep an eye on Omax Prosper. Denver, another big winner here. It's going to be interesting how the trade is structured with Valanciunas for Saric. If Denver, and they have a lot of smart people in that front office, they would tie that into the Michael Porter Jr. trade with Brooklyn, so you're not triggering the first apron. If you did the Saric for Valanciunas trade straight up, you are now hard capped at the first apron. I don't think that's the route that they're going to be. Second apron restriction for Denver. Nice job, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Valanciunas. 3 quality veterans you add to the young roster already. Keep an eye on Christian Brown and Peyton Watson for extensions. It's hard for me to think that this Denver team is going to be in a luxury tax for the 4th year in a row. Detroit will be interesting because we have to see how they've structured some of these contracts. Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson, Paul Reed, certainly back with Detroit. Detroit, priority, shooting. Karis LeVert, we think it's the non-tax ML. Paul Reed is the biannual. And then Duncan Robinson is a sign-in trade. You are triggered at the first apron, but you have so much flexibility. But the priority was shooting. Wow, I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all these teams. I'm running out of breath. Golden State, watch out for Jonathan Kuminga, another guy who is a restricted free agent. That will impact as far as what they have as far as the exception goes. $171 million in salary. The first apron is $196, let's say. Kuminga's number will dictate if you have the $5.7 million tax ML or you have a greater or you have roughly $10 to $12 million of your bigger exception. Golden State's in a holding pattern. Kuminga market is dry, as well as these other restricted free agents here. It's just not a market. Houston, we've talked about at length. Dorian Finney-Smith. They're going to be interesting because the Houston Durant trade, which was originally Houston and Phoenix, is now going to be a 7-teamer. And all these teams, whether it's going to be Atlanta's going to be involved because Capella's going to Houston in the sign trade. Brooklyn's going to be involved. Minnesota's going to be involved. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. All these teams are going to be involved. It's going to be wind up to be the biggest trade in NBA history. Tops the 6-teamer last year. They are one of the big winners of the offseason. I gave them an A. Oh, boy, Indiana. Whew. A week ago or 10 days ago, you were 1 game away from winning it all. Today, you have no Tyrese Halliburton who's injured and you don't have your starting center. And while you can say you have greater cap flexibility moving forward, losing 2 out of your 5 starters now diminishes what was already a great bench. And now it's kind of the next man up. You've got Tony Bradley right now as your incumbent starter. We'll see what they do with maybe who they can go out and sign. The market for centers is not strong. I was asked on Indiana radio if the Pacers were blindsided. I wouldn't say blindsided, but I didn't think we would see a stretch provision that great. And we're going to talk about Milwaukee in a minute, where it basically opened up a ton of room for them to go out and get Miles Turner here. The downside is that it did not give you basically an opening to go out and sign a free agent because the market is not good at all. But you do have that $14.1 million non-tax ML. We'll see what happens as far as how Indiana addresses their bench. The Turner number that Indiana offered was 3 for 69. It's a solid contract. Like it's a solid contract. Unfortunately, you had this other team in Milwaukee come in and swoop, and that's what happened. It's basically, I don't want to say you misjudged the market, but you didn't really. I don't think any of us saw Milwaukee coming in play here. Clips, nice job. Brooke Lopez, 2 for 18, team option second year. Nick Batum, team option we've talked about. We will keep an eye on Norman Powell, who's extension eligible. Clippers are making a priority for cap space next season. Lakers finally on the board. Jake LaRavia and DeAndre Ayton split the non-tax ML. You can sign multiple players to that deal. That's what they did. They are roughly $5.6 million below the first apron, excuse me, that's been triggered. They should sign their draft pick, Adu Thero, because it's 1.2. They're going to basically have to waive Shake Milton to be able to use the biannual exception. Memphis, they were a winner, and then you get the Jaren Jackson Jr. renegotiation and extension. They basically bumped Jackson's number up with cap space. We're going to find out who that cap space victim is going to be here. Is it going to be Cole Anthony or is it going to be John Conchar? But they bumped the contract up to 33 and then extended 140% off that. And that's where you get that 240 number with Jaren Jackson. I like the Ty Jerome signing because it gives them some insurance for Ja Morant. But as we see, Memphis became a cap space team. He signs with the room exception. Okay, cap space team, room exception. Santi Adama, 3 for 58, I want to say. He is going to be the last of the signings because his cap hold is counted against it. There is a mechanics as far as how you go about doing it. Miami, Davion Mitchell, I like. Simone Fontecchio, I like. They are at 185. They've got probably about $9 million of their non-tax mid-level exception to go out and use. Milwaukee, of course, we did not do a video on the stretch provision. Stretch provision, okay, has to be done by August 29th. So you basically have a 2-month window from July 1 to now. You take the amount of years. Damian Lillard had 2 years left. You multiply it by 2 and you add 1. Don't ask me how they came up with the formula, but that is the formula. And then you take the number of years, so it's 5, you divide it amongst 113. That's how you get that $22.5 million cap hit. If Lillard signs with another team, let's say he signs for $4 million, it's $4 million minus the 1 years of service, which is $2 million. You might multiply that by 50%. So you basically would get $1 million offset as far as over the amount of years that are stretched here. It is I won't say robbing Peter to pay Paul, as my good friend Brian Windhorst. And I said this on TV. We work in 3-year windows usually when you're building rosters. The Bucks, and it's no fault of theirs, are basically opening or operating on a day-to-day, at least 1-year window here because you are trying to build the best roster possible. And you are going to do that even if you have to take on a $22.5 million cap hit. I would have done it if I was Milwaukee also, if my options were basically somewhat non-existent here. And their options, because we always said that Lillard number keeps on bothering me. And now you saw why, because he was not going to play this year likely. And now you go out and you stretch that amount over 5 years. The maximum amount of stretched money is 15%. Okay. So you're not allowed to, they're right at that number right now. Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent, Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, Miles Turner. Okay. Gary Harris, Torian Prince, Bobby Portis, Jericho Sims. They're in the middle of the pack of the Eastern Conference. I'm not ready to say they're world beaters right now. But they did the stretch provision. Certainly unique, I would say. Minnesota, we've talked about. We did the whip around with Julius Randle. They are they're about $5 million below the second apron. I don't see them using that $5.7 million biannual, I'm sorry, non-tax mid-level exception. I just don't. New Orleans, come on Looney, 2 years, 16 million. Their first apron is trigger. They are roughly 4 million below. Center U, Looney will be great in the locker room for this group. They already got Derek Queen and Yves Missy. New York, congratulations. You finally have a head coach. I really like Mike Brown. I think he is a terrific coach. You signed Gershon Yabusele, tax mid-level exception. That triggers apron 2. And you got Jordan Clarkson once he clears waivers, which I believe he already has. You are $3.8 million below the second apron. How do you stay under? You can sign one minimum, and you can sign one of your first round picks. You can even sign Kevin McCullough, who you had drafted, and he was on a 2A last year. You can sign him to a second round pick exception. You can stay under the apron if that's what you want to do. I like what New York's done. They're 9 deep right now, and certainly you want a big development spike in Tyler Kolek and Pacom Dadier. Probably butchered his name. Oklahoma City, yes, we talked about the Thunder. They are intact. Shea gets a 285 Supermax, 15th player, 35% of the cap. How you add the increases each time, it's 35% of the cap, that number, let's say it's 40, whatever, 45, 8% increase. And then you add that what the increase was to each year. You don't compound 8%, 8%, 8%. So that is Oklahoma City. The roster is intact. 14 out of the 15 players return. The 15th players is Thomas Sorber. Orlando, another big winner, Tyus Jones. They get their backcourt. Last in assists last year, and certainly that Desmond Bane contract or trade that they made before free agency started. Orlando is in pretty good shape. They are $7 million below the first apron. Mo Wagner, keep an eye on him. Man, there are a lot of teams here. I don't know why I said we'd do all 30. Philly, the trade in Watford, Eric Gordon. We knew once Gordon declined that option, we knew he was likely coming back. It's basically a wink, wink there. When you say, basically, when you sign a 2-year veteran minimum exception, you have a 2-year, you have the full amount of years of service. So for Eric Gordon, he was getting a full cap hit for this year based on his years of service. So let's say it was, I don't know, 3-4, for example. By him declining the option and signing for a 1-year contract, it's at 2-3. So you save roughly $1.1 million. Quentin Grimes, another one of these restricted free agents. They are $22 million below apron 2. So you are unlikely going to have an exception to use based on what happens with Mr. Grimes. Phoenix, we're waiting. I would expect a Bradley Beal wave and stretch sometime in the near future. Don't aggregate me. I'm just looking at it from a numbers perspective because that makes the most sense. You waived Cody Martin. You made some savings. If you do the wave and stretch provision, and it's similar to Lillard, and I would expect there probably be a buyout because Beal will have a new home somewhere. You will go under the luxury tax. You hit the trifecta: luxury tax, first apron, and second apron. You get under all 3, and you would save roughly $165 million towards the luxury tax. Portland, the DeAndre Ayton buyout, $10 million off his. What else do we have here at Portland? Welcome to the Donovan Clingan era. Sack. Oh boy. Dennis Schroeder, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. This is a lottery team, folks. And you are $8 million below the first apron. This is definitely a lottery team. I hate to say it. We'll keep an eye on Keegan Murray for his extension eligible. I would say this roster is in play. This would be a wild card team for me when you look at DeRozan and LaVine. Probably less. Less Sabonis. I would keep an eye on LaVine and DeRozan and Monk. San Antonio, Luke Cornett, huge fan of that signing. 4 for 41, I believe. That's a big signing. I'm a huge Luke Cornett fan, and then certainly you compare him with Victor. Keep an eye on Chris Paul. Milwaukee would be a great fit. Certainly Phoenix back home. We will keep an eye on Mr. Chris Paul, but I do like Luke Cornett out of the non-tax mid-level exception, and they are $22 million below. Toronto has been quiet outside of Masai Ujiri. Garrett Temple they resigned. Sandro yeah, I feel like Perk. Mama Kashvili, I believe. I have the pronunciation here too. I'm just so tired. I'm not going to look for it. And I apologize to him, the great Sandro from Seton Hall. I apologize. They are over the luxury tax. That's not a place you want to be. $4 million over luxury tax. Utah, pretty quiet in Utah. Still have all their exceptions available. They made the Nurkic trade on Sunday. Certainly an overload of power forwards. They have flexibility with some of these non-guaranteed contracts. And then the Washington Wizards, they did a lot of their work before free agency started, certainly with that Jordan Poole trade. They are $11 million below, $19 million below apron one, and they are $11 million below luxury tax. So, whoo, that's it in a whip around, man. We did all 30 teams, and I apologize if some of you only got 10 seconds, Raptor fans. And I apologize to my friend Sandro, who I butchered his last name. I felt like I was Perk with how he is a master of the words. But that is it. Free agency, one day of it, a couple of days of it. It's diminished because you're allowed to negotiate with your own free agents once the finals is over. We're going to see an uptick in extensions coming up. A lot of players that are eligible. We did a segment on NBA Today. Whether it be John Moran or Devin Booker or Karl Anthony Towns or Mikal Bridges or Nikola Jokic or Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, there is a list of players that are extension eligible. We'll keep an eye on that. That is it. Greetings from Los Angeles. I am going home tomorrow. You can catch me on Get Up. I will see if you're in Vegas next week. Come up and talk to me. I don't bite, and we will talk soon. Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Pick them James, how they wear, I pull up long range. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA on the ESPN time.